when you're lying, you have to remember what you say and to keep a story straight.
Never underestimate a smile on the outside. Robyn's face here told a completely different story.
So today is Meri's moving day. Kody's over there with her, helping pack up.
Robyn looked absolutely livid. Her face during that clip of Kody helping Meri move spoke volumes. For someone who claims to support their reconciliation, her expression told a very different story. One that suggested she believes Kody is hers alone.
But every single cell in my body would be screaming at me to stop helping.
It was almost as if Robyn only ever wanted Kody to reconcile with Meri's financial contributions, not with Meri herself. That moment made it obvious that she's always seen her relationship with Kody as uniquely intimate, despite his spiritual marriages to the other 3 women.
I was hoping to be able to be a part of it and help her and go there.
The tension in her face looked like someone watching their partner be unfaithful. By the end of the marriages, it was clear that Janelle was probably the only one who still had any kind of physical connection with him. Meri hadn't been touched in over a decade, and Christine had most likely been emotionally and physically distanced long before she left. But none of that mattered to Robyn. What mattered was seeing Kody laughing and happy with someone who wasn't her. That clenched jaw and steely stare showed exactly what she was feeling. Even though she tried to appear indifferent, it was impossible to hide her resentment. Robyn refused to look at most of the other clips, yet during this one, she kept sneaking glances. Perhaps this clip wasn't as distressing as the others because, on some level, she still thrives on the competition. Meri was once part of that dynamic, but Meri ultimately chose her own path. Now Robyn is left to compete only with herself. And when Kody remarked that this version of Meri was the one he would have liked to stay married to, it clearly hit a nerve. Never trust what you see on the surface when Christine talks about Meri. The real story is way messier.
I was afraid of what she would do.
Christine's remarks about Meri felt needlessly harsh. It seemed unfair that she excused Kody's behavior by saying he was simply afraid of Meri's reaction.
We just didn't ever know if she was going to be easy or hard. So we were walking on eggshells a lot.
That excuse, that everyone was constantly walking on eggshells, doesn't hold up when what Meri truly deserved was a direct and honest discussion about her relationship. Even Janelle, despite her own issues with Meri, didn't try to excuse Kody. She rightly pointed out how wrong Kody was in handling things.
I feel like I'm just completely rejected. Hold on, Christine, I'm gonna go look at that one. Holy hell, if you go over there, I will tackle you.
There's often a double-edged tone in how Christine speaks about Meri. Comments that sound supportive on the surface frequently carry an undercurrent of criticism. Instead of re-examining her perception of Meri now that time has passed, Christine seems stuck viewing Meri through Kody's narrative.
Meri and I are in a very different place where we have taken the time.
From the start, Kody painted Meri as the problem, the one to be feared, the one to blame. Rather than forming their own judgments, the wives too often accepted his version of the story. Meri wasn't feared because of who she was feared because she spoke up and asked questions, something that didn't fit the mold. From the beginning, there was a deliberate effort to cast doubt on her, isolating her within the family. It's disappointing that Christine, after everything, hasn't reconsidered this. While Janelle and Meri are taking steps toward understanding the harm done in their shared experience.
And Christine here needing excuses to be able to leave.
Christine seems caught up in rehashing the past and holding on to resentment. Instead of acknowledging the role polygamy and their shared environment played in all their conflicts, Christine keeps positioning herself as above it all, while continuing to take unnecessary digs at Meri. All of them were part of a difficult and damaging dynamic, with Kody at its center.
Meri's alone. Janelle's expressing that, she sees that she's going to be being alone.
Janelle and Meri have started to own their mistakes and move forward. Christine, however, appears to focus on validating herself through external approval rather than reflecting on the deeper causes of what went wrong, both in her marriage and in her relationships with the other wives. There's no denying that rebuilding trust will take time. Everyone involved made choices shaped by the pressures they lived under. But if Christine wants real healing, she will need to step back, look inward, and start untangling her view of Meri from the lens of the past.
Never trust what Kody says on camera.
Here's the truth his own kids saw from day one. Even by season 1, episode 3, the cracks in the family dynamic are impossible to ignore. Aspen, Leon, Maddie, and Mykelti speak openly about Robyn joining the family, and you can tell they're not convinced by the forced smiles.
When she smells your jacket that you're wearing, that's your father's, and she says, "I miss your dad." That can be weird.
Mykelti shares this cringy moment where Robyn is sniffing Kody's coat and sighing, "Oh, that makes me miss your dad," which is enough to make anyone gag.
He's a teenager again.
Leon jokes that Kody's acting like a teenager, and Maddie quips, he's all like, "Oh, I love Robyn. If he was my husband, I'd be ripping her hair out."
I love Robyn. Just if he was my husband with another woman, I'd be ripping her hair out.
The whole thing feels so fake. The wives put on brave faces and gloss over obvious issues with an "it'll all work out," except for Christine.
I'm not interested in getting back together again for something yet. All I'm going to be is cordial.
Christine is raw, emotional, and heartbreakingly honest about how much this is tearing her apart. Unlike the adults, the kids see straight through it. They didn't sign up for this, and they sure didn't have a real choice, especially not with Kody pulling the "I have a testimony from God" card if they wanted to keep him. Plus, there was no income to leave on. Out of the mouths of babes, right? The teens call it exactly what it is, bizarre and unfair. Yet they never get credit.
And my religion still believes in polygamy, but I don't really think I believe in polygamy for me.
And years later, Kody himself admits he never really believed in the polygamous lifestyle or followed his own religion. Still, he insists on dictating everyone else's choices, even telling Robyn's adult kids how to worship, all while expecting to be revered as infallible Kody Brown, the guy who can't follow his own rules. Why respect that? When someone never admits they're wrong and twists the rules to suit their whims, they're just another self-appointed prophet making up doctrine to control women and children. If watching this train wreck has taught us anything, it's to never let a man declare what's moral or righteous.
There was a time when he would give me his coat to wear, and now Robyn's being all chivalrous for me, for him.
And Robyn, don't even get started. Who hands Meri Kody's jacket instead of inviting her inside, all dreamy-eyed about smelling like Kody, like that's supposed to make her feel hugged? What is wrong with Robyn? Even a teenager could see it was icky from the jump. Christine was honest and open the entire time. It was heartbreaking, especially when Kody kept saying she wasn't a good sister wife to Robyn. Give me a break. Christine was constantly reaching out more than anyone.
For a long time, sort of belonged what I considered the Kody, Robyn, Meri camp. And I didn't really cross paths with her.
Even Janelle admitted she barely interacted with Robyn one-on-one. Yet somehow the narrative got rewritten. It's sad. We know there must be hours of footage showing what really went on before they spun this fake version. Here's what no one tells you about the so-called martyr in a relationship. They're often the biggest manipulator of all.
So weird. If you listen closely to how he talks to her, well, he talks to any of us, really, except for Robyn.
Kody completely falls apart whenever the story slips out of his hands. It's unsettlingly familiar. It reminds me of someone I knew who was formerly diagnosed with narcissistic personality disorder. That relationship involved 4 different therapists. The last one finally helped me realize it was time to leave. That therapist had a straightforward plan, one session dedicated to my feelings about the marriage after a private one-on-one. During the joint session, the therapist calmly raised every issue I had described. Every time my ex immediately blamed me. Finally, the therapist simply asked, "Why is it that every concern she has about you is immediately turned back onto her?" That was the first time anyone had called him out so directly, and he unraveled. First came the arguing, then the silent treatment for the rest of the session. At home, he ignored me for days and then refused to go back. It was so clear that as soon as someone challenged the story where he was perfect and I was the problem, he shut down entirely. That's exactly what Kody does. The moment someone refuses to buy into his version, that he's the victim and everyone else is to blame, he disengages. Even his kids, the ones who recognize his behavior, they hardly matter to him anymore.
No, I feel like Kody and I are in a good place, but I feel like he's not as in a good of a place.
You can see it most painfully with Meri. That tense conversation, whether at the end of one season or the start of the next, where she tries to talk honestly about their dying marriage. Kody sits there, stone-faced, repeating that they'll talk in therapy, avoiding every attempt she makes to connect. When she presses him, he throws her past words at her like a weapon and feigns total ignorance about the hurtful things he's already said.
We'll look back and darn, we'll be glad we had done the in vitro fertilization.
Never mind the years he dangled IVF in front of her, let her hope, then rejected the idea after pushing her to make a decision. Or the smug way everyone laughed at her self-deprecating joke about not meeting the average number of kids. Even then, nobody paused to acknowledge her pain. They just laughed. And all the while, she had already sacrificed her marriage so he could adopt someone else's children, then was left isolated and ignored. Even when she reached out for practical help, his response was to tell her to figure it out yourself, then hold her own words against her as an excuse to stay distant.
Anyway, I was joking about Meri during the catfish. She basically, during that experience,
Her vulnerabilities, like being manipulated during the catfish incident, weren't met with compassion. Instead, they were exploited to make her look unstable and further isolate her.
That's really hurtful, though.
It was very hurtful. He told me things that I needed to do.
Kody paints himself as endlessly wronged while showing virtually no empathy. It's heartbreaking to see someone so cold and self-centered, especially knowing that, by all accounts, his behavior only worsens over time. Now I'm going to show you exactly why Robyn's arrival shattered an already stable family and the lies that finally gave her away. In season 18, I couldn't help but notice Robyn accidentally giving herself away. Christine had previously called her out for planting the idea of Kody divorcing Meri so that Robyn's kids could be adopted.
I don't even know anyone who divorced their first wife so that the second wife could adopt kids. I've never even heard of that before.
Robyn had played innocent at the time, claiming, "I don't even know of anybody who did that." But in the most recent one-on-one, she casually mentioned that she did know someone who had. They just never talked about it.
Because when Robyn first came into the family, she would talk about other examples where a guy would divorce his first wife and marry the wife coming in, and it was a beautiful thing so they could adopt the kids. And I'd be like,
It's clear Robyn was never a good fit for the family. Even if Kody hadn't shown obvious favoritism, there was always going to be a disconnect. She was much younger than the other wives, and by the time she arrived, the family was already well established. Adding her into the mix was bound to cause problems.
with Robyn coming along, it just changes everything.
Bringing in a new wife, especially one with 3 kids, into a household that had been stable for so long was a questionable decision from the start. The original 3 wives all married Kody close together, and none of the children had ever known a different dynamic. Introducing Robyn and her children disrupted that balance entirely.
I can't even bring anything up with Kody about Robyn because she's perfect, she's supportive, she's the only one who's been loyal.
From the very beginning, Robyn also positioned herself as a gatekeeper, ensuring that all communication and decisions had to flow through her. It was as if she had appointed herself the only one who could truly understand Kody.
When you're lying, you have to remember what you say. Like, I don't feel like I have to remember what to say and to keep a story straight because I'm speaking my truth.
Meri once said, "If you're telling the truth, you don't have to remember the lie." And Robyn's shifting stories over the years seem to prove that. Time and again, her contradictions have come to light, making it clear that her version of events often changes. Never assume a big, happy, plural family is real. Sometimes it's all just an act for the cameras.
Janelle and I just are not like super close. We don't hate each other.
I honestly never realized just how much effort Janelle and Meri put into avoiding one another. They weren't just distant. They were Olympic-level committed to not communicating. Watching them in therapy was almost fascinating. These two wouldn't even wave at each other if they crossed paths hauling trash or passing in the cul-de-sac. And that's not just ignoring a casual neighbor. They were sister wives. That's next level. I could see Meri being that icy.
I think everybody thinks that somehow you're supposed to all be friends, hold hands, and skip together down the road.
So that part didn't surprise me. But Janelle, that was unexpected. I always thought of her as super practical. The kind of person who would do the polite thing, at least. Clearly, I didn't know her at all. The fact that they were so awkward about even sharing a car together is kind of ridiculous. Can you imagine inviting them to some family dinner and then watching them act like strangers the next day? Even if everyone has their own idea of comfort, this was so extreme, it's almost comical.
You know, Meri and I really have settled into a very comfortable, functioning place in our relationship over the last 25 years.
And the show really made it seem like they were this semi-functional family. So it's kind of a shock that things weren't even worse. But let's face it, sharing one husband with 3 other women, that would be a nightmare. Frankly, I'd probably hate them too. Kody going on about polygamy in the animal kingdom is just ridiculous. As if deer and penguins have to navigate this kind of emotional baggage. Sorry, buddy. Comparing your plural marriage to wildlife is laughable. What an asshat. At the end of the day, they just didn't like each other. If they hadn't been thrown into this arrangement, they'd probably never have crossed paths. They might have respected each other on some level over time. Sure, they could recognize each other's strengths, but they weren't going to give up the Cold War. And it's important to remember that Meri and Janelle actually started out as friends, years before this all fell apart.
I was jealous, you know, especially when Kody and Janelle went off on their honeymoon and stuff. And
That history makes it even sadder. From Meri's point of view, it must have felt super suspicious. Here's your close friend who divorces your brother and suddenly has this spiritual calling to join your family. Plus, Kody not telling Meri they were courting didn't exactly help. And choosing to marry on Meri's birthday? That was like a neon sign announcing this was going to be messy. Of course, Kody's total inability to manage conflict just made everything worse. If there was an argument to stir up, you can bet he either picked sides or ran away, making it fester. And let's not pretend he wasn't fueling the fire by gossiping to one wife about the other. No wonder those early years were so toxic.
this is kind of typical of mine and Janelle's relationship. Both of us are very well aware of the fact that we've never been best friends.
And as soon as they had the chance to get some space, they grabbed it with both hands. The real shame is that there could have been a real friendship between them. They were different, sure, but they were both good people who cared about each other's kids and went through this very specific, very difficult experience together. Instead, they built walls, kept up appearances, and played at being one big happy family whenever someone was looking. And those tense scenes of Meri and Janelle barely acknowledging each other, that was the reality, not some made-for-TV exaggeration. The big family parties and holiday smiles were just for show. Underneath it all, they couldn't stand each other. They weren't sister wives, they were co-workers in a very strange, very tense office, tolerating one another just enough to keep up appearances. If you used to love sister wives but can't stand watching anymore, you're not alone. You know what? I think I'm finally done. As someone who's been watching since the very beginning, back when all 4 wives were under one roof, I can officially say my interest is gone. It's not even because I'm mad at Kody or Robyn anymore. Honestly, I'm just incredibly bored. How are we 3 entire seasons past the divorce and still spinning our wheels? Are we ever going to move on and see what their actual lives look like now? Or would that require them to come up with a spin-off nobody wants? Either way, I watched part 3 of the tell-all and barely paid attention. That's how invested I was. 0.
I can't even bring anything up with Kody about Robyn because she's perfect, she's supportive, she's the only one who's been loyal.
It's just one long, drawn-out rerun of the same tired arguments. Kody and Robyn still won't take any real ownership for the damage they caused. And at this point, I don't care enough to keep watching the same cycle repeat forever. Meanwhile, Christine, Janelle, and Meri are off healing and living their lives, which is honestly great. But that's also why this isn't much of a show anymore. Watching people move on and process tragedy might be meaningful in real life, but it doesn't make for very entertaining television. And don't even get me started on Kody. After everything, he's learned exactly nothing. Robyn's learned exactly nothing. Even in the face of unimaginable loss, Kody somehow still manages to make it all about him, which tells me everything I need to know. So yeah, my last tell-all, the storyline is gone, they're not sister wives anymore. What drew me to this show in the first place is long gone too. And as for this tell-all, what was that? They barely discussed anything that actually happened this season. No one asked about McKelty's twins, what it was like for Christine and Robyn to be around each other, Janelle's land and move, Meri's B&B, none of it. Instead, we wasted time on boys' weekends and other fluff. It felt like watching someone stretch 10 minutes of content into an hour. Honestly, it was a total waste of a tell-all. Nothing new, nothing real, just rehashing the same old stuff. Thanks for watching Reality Nexus X. If this made you think, hit like, let's get to 1,000, subscribe for more insight. I'm Lena. See you next time. Ta-ta for now.